Right.
Hey, everybody, this is Harvey Sluggo Wasserman back for the 142nd, count of 142, Green Grassroots Emergency Electric Protection Coalition Zoom call. We are going to be meeting for 2 full hours as usual with a tremendous array of issues to deal with, a wonderful agenda. I will mention at the top that we are not going to meet next week. It's the July 4th weekend. We take off our holidays, and but we will be back 2 weeks from tomorrow. And I am, as you can see, at the beach as always. We have 34 people with us, and we're going to start off with a brief word about Pacifica Radio. We are waiting for Maya von Rossum to talk about her book on greener elections, and Rachel Coyle to talk about the insanity that's going on in Ohio. And then in the second hour, we're going to talk about energy as usual and the environment. Tatanka Brick is going to give us the latest on UFOs and energy. I mean, there's a serious issue with, what kind of energy we could be getting from reverse engineering outer space technology. It seems, I think we've crossed the line with UFOs in that the U.S. government has now officially got an agency, thanks to Danny Sheehan, and it's a big deal. So we're going to talk about that. And Kat Kramer, I want to talk to you. You are the movie maven in Los Angeles, and I want to challenge Oliver Stone to a full-on debate about his ridiculous pro-nuclear movie. It's completely insane. And I've seen him interviewed a number of times, and Oliver Stone, a former icon, a great hero of so many of us, has basically gone to work for the tobacco industry. I mean, it's ridiculous what he's saying about the health effects of radiation, among much more. He clearly knows nothing about nuclear power. We are joined by someone who really does know a lot about nuclear power, Carl Grossman. Good to see you, Carl. I see by your shirt that you're in Hawaii. Glad to join you here. Well, Long Island, Hawaii, what difference? Anyway, so we're going to proceed. I am going to put in a word real quick now for Pacifica. We talked about it before, but this is a week where people need to join the Pacifica Radio Network and go to New Day Pacifica. I think Maya will put it in the chat, newdaypacifica.org. Sign up with your $25 and you will be able to vote in the election. You may be concerned or confused what station to sign up for. Basically, because Pacifica is on the internet, you can sign up for any station. There are a number of us on this call who are running for the board at KPFK in Los Angeles. Tatanka is a candidate. Wendy will be running in DC with Mike Hirsch. That's WPFW. I'm running for re-election. I'm actually, weirdly enough, currently the board chair of KPFK, something I said I'd never do, but here we are. Ruth Strauss, Dr. Ruth, is on the board, Nancy Naparco. So pick a station that you want to join, but please sign up before Friday to join the Pacifica Radio Network for $25, and you will be able to vote in the upcoming elections. Actually, absolutely essential. Kat Kramer is running for the board too at KPFK. It's absolutely essential that we save Pacifica. 5 major radio stations, one each in New York City, DC, Houston, LA, and the Bay Area, and we need your support. Carl, if you'd ever consider running for the BAI board, you're a New Yorker, at least join up and pick a station to vote at. But we really, really need your help. Lynn Finerman, you're a radio person. We could possibly eventually get you on a board somewhere. It'd be great. But everybody, I know Dave Saltman has taken the hit and he's joined up at WBAI. And so it's really good to do that. Please, again, it's www.newdaypacifica.org. So please sign up and join up. It would be greatly appreciated. I do say I was watching the news today. I go to the gym and I sit on the seated elliptical, which is reserved for people over 100. And I watched the news, and there was a lot of talk about this apparent rebellion in Russia and they're all talking about, the danger. I was shocked to see, by the way, that Russia has more nuclear weapons than any other country in the world, more than the U.S., more than 5,600 atomic weapons. But they didn't talk about the power plants. And we're going to talk about this in the second hour. We are in desperate danger from the atomic power plants in Ukraine. We've talked about this before, but every week it gets more dangerous because these reactors at Zaporizhia are not being maintained. They have spent fuel pools. They're all shut, by the way, but the actual reactors, but the spent fuel pools need cooling. And somebody, the Russians blame the Ukrainians and vice versa, blew up a dam that threatens the water supply to keep Zaporizhia cool. And it's absolutely terrifying. And I have to tell you that I have been watching a show on Netflix called The Days, D-A-Y-S, The Days. And it's about Fukushima. And it's sort of the mirror of the show that HBO did about Chernobyl, which I have to say was the most depressing 8 hours of television I've ever watched. And we are now seeing it duplicated on Netflix with this series, I think 6 or 7 episodes on Fukushima. It's horrifying, beyond and incredibly depressing, but necessary to watch. And so I'm just at the point where Unit 2 or 3 blew up, and they're pretty clear on what happened there. This is not exact, neither the Chernobyl series nor this series on Fukushima is what you would call a whitewash. And when I watch this stuff, and then I turn around and think about Oliver Stone glibly running his mouth off about nuclear power, about which he clearly knows nothing, it really infuriates me. So if you're game for some self-abuse that is very, very educational, please do tune in. If you haven't watched it, watch first the Chernobyl series on HBO, and then watch The Days at Netflix. And then there's also the new documentary we're trying to get Heidi Heitkamp, who made it, called The Women of 3 Mile Island. And it's about women that I actually interviewed in 1979 and 1980, for God's sakes, about the people who actually are dying, who've died and are dying at 3 Mile Island. One of the big lies, which is continually repeated by Oliver Stone, for God's sakes, is that nobody was harmed at 3 Mile Island. In 1980, I went in to central Pennsylvania and interviewed people. It was the worst week of my life. Among them, some of these women whose lives were destroyed by radiation from 3 Mile Island. So these are the three, if you really want to get up to speed on nuclear power, The Women of 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl at HBO, and The Days at Netflix. And my suggestion on the Chernobyl and the Fukushima series is, especially with Chernobyl, is to tune in like in the morning and watch straight through. Because if you watch 3 successive nights, which I did for Chernobyl, you're going to ruin three successive nights of sleep. But this thing on Fukushima is very, very powerful. The thing on Chernobyl was absolutely riveting and petrifying. And we're now facing this reality at Fukushima, at Zaporizhia, which nobody wants to talk about. And anybody who knows anything about nuclear power is absolutely petrified about what could happen next at Zaporizhia. Could be happening as we speak. So that's the following. I do have a piece up, Steve, if you could possibly put the link in at freepress.org. It's called 101 Ways That Nuclear Power Plants Suck. And you can take a look. I'm going to do another 108 points when I get the time. But it's a bit, so in the second hour, we're going to talk further about that. Right now, I see we're joined by Ray McClendon. Hi, Ray. Good to see you. Also, Julie Levine from the 5G movement is with us. Great to see you, Julie Lynn Feinerman, a radio star, is with us. We got a full boat here. So we want to start, thanks to Wendy Lederman, with the discussion with Maya von Rossum. Hi, Maya, how are you? I'm going to unmute you. You have a book about green amendments, and your party, you're involved with an incredible lawsuit. Oh, there we go. Hey, we got two of them there. You're involved with an incredible lawsuit that everybody needs to know about. A bunch of kids basically are suing in the state of Montana on an environmental lawsuit that's absolutely critical to our survival. So can you tell us about that, Maya von Rossum?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I can't take credit for the lawsuit. So I was just in Montana to watch it live because the lawsuit is based on one of only 3 green amendments that exist in the United States of America. And for those who were have listened to me previously or were on your show previously, you know, I've talked about the power and importance of having a constitutional green amendment that lifts up and recognizes and protects the rights of all people to pure water, clean air, a stable climate, and healthy environments, and gives them the same highest constitutional recognition, protection, and standing as all the other fundamental rights we hold dear, like rights to free speech and freedom of religion. There have been the 3 states that have green amendments: Montana, Pennsylvania, and New York. And that's it. New York's, we just secured it just about a year and a half ago. It was passed and added to the Constitution last year. Pennsylvania and Montana's green amendments have been around for several decades and actually have been used very powerfully over the years. That's part of what I talk about in the book, The Green Amendment, and is what we're going to be talking about on National Green Amendment Day, July 13th. So if you want to know how green amendments work writ large, come to National Green Amendment Day. I'm going to be joined by Melissa Martin, who is, along with Wendy, helping to champion and lead the Green Amendment effort in the state of Florida. Now, to the lawsuit. So in Montana, there is a group of 16 youth represented by 2 organizations, the Western Environmental Law Center and Our Children's Trust, that have brought a case asserting that the state's failure to address the climate crisis and actually to do the exact opposite and really perpetuate and grow climate changing emissions from the extraction, transportation, and combustion of fossil fuels in the state is a violation of the Bill of Rights section of the Montana Constitution that protects the rights of all people in Montana to a clean and healthful environment. And this lawsuit is about making the case that a safe climate is part of a clean and healthful environment, and therefore the state's actions lifting up fossil fuels, advancing fossil fuels the way they have, ignoring the climate changing ramifications of government action in the state, is resulting in a constitutional violation of Montana's Bill of Rights, which includes a Green Amendment.
Fantastic. Have you posted links and stuff?
So I put into the chat, and I'll do it again. I just put in, I didn't give an explanation of the link to National Green Amendment Day. And on Green Amendment Day, again, it's July 13th. We always have a live program on Green Amendment Day. And this year's Green Amendment Day is going to be giving examples of the many ways that having a constitutional green amendment in Pennsylvania, Montana, and New York has really made a difference for protecting water, protecting air, addressing toxic sites, helping to defeat the advancement of dirty fossil fuels. And we will talk a little bit about this Held v. Montana case. It'll be one of the examples, which is based on Montana's Green Amendment, and again, challenging the climate changing ramifications of government action. The one thing I want to add is, you know, the organizations involved have pursued this kind of case in a number of states, and very often the cases fail on the motion to dismiss and segment. And one of the reasons why, and I've been saying this for years, is because the language that those cases have depended upon, like in Alaska and Utah and other places, is not Green Amendment language. It talks about environmental protection, but it really gives the power to the state to define what environmental protection or environmental rights are. It doesn't give the power to the people, which is what a Bill of Rights provision that meets the Green Amendment criteria and definition does. That gives the power to the people, not to the legislature. So that's why what is happening in Montana is so starkly different than what we've seen in these other states, because it has this most powerful Green Amendment language that is the foundation of the lawsuit. And the case was really fascinating. It went on for 7 days. And the youth got up and talked about all the ways their lives have been devastated by the climate crisis. Experts came forth talking about how Montana government action is releasing massive volumes of climate changing emissions and really impacting the health and the safety of these 16 youth plaintiffs, but also, right, by extension, the rest of the people of Montana. So it was very effectively put on. And it was very interesting. And it was just great to be there because, again, I'm trying to get a Green Amendment in every state constitution across the nation. And this was a good example of why.
What court was this in? Was this a state court or a federal court?
This was a state court because it's a state constitutional provision. So it was brought in state court. There's really only 2 other times where a Green Amendment case has been in federal court, and that's because of the vagaries of the legal arguments being made. But generally, Green Amendment cases go before state courts because it's about state government action.
Were you in the Supreme Court of the state of Montana?
No, not yet. This was in the first judicial district. So, right, this is at the trial level. So this was the trial, and chances are whoever is victorious in this case, the other party will appeal. So we can surely expect to see this go all the way up to the Montana Supreme Court.
Well, who's opposing you?
Remember, it's not me. Who's opposing me on Green Amendments is, but in terms of this case, so I don't want to take credit for, what the plaintiffs and the organizations are doing. For the Green Amendment, the opposition, as you can imagine, is industry and their political partners. In the Held v. Montana case, the case is against the state. And so the state are the ones pushing back and saying, no, this is not a constitutional violation at play here. And the state's bad actions, frankly, should be upheld, which I sorely disagree with.
Now, are all the young people that are parties to this suit Montana residents?
Yes, they are.
And how many are there?
16.
And how old are they?
They ranged, I think, from 5 to 22, if I understood correctly. When the case was first filed, all of them were a few years younger because it was filed a few years ago. But I think, if I understood correctly, again, at this point, the age range was 5 to 22.
5? You have a 5-year-old?
Not me. Remember, it's
Oh,
not
okay.
my case. I can't take credit. But yeah, I mean, I think there was one as, in a couple of instances, right, the parent was there on behalf of the children. Most of the children testified. In one case, a father testified for 2 Native American youth that were part of the case. I think that those 2 youngest plaintiffs, their parent was with them in the courtroom, but they did not testify, I think.
So my daughter's about to give birth to a child. Can I file in New Jersey? Can I file my youngest granddaughter to a lawsuit in New Jersey? What do you think?
Well, in New Jersey, our Green Amendment effort is still underway. So once we get a Green Amendment passed, the New Jersey Green Amendment, then you can think about it. But first, we have to get that passed, and I'm going to give you the website to the Green Amendment. To the Green Amendment movement for anybody who's in New Jersey and wants to join that effort.
Are all these? I'm going to go to George Ripley in a second. Are all these Green Amendment campaigns state-based?
Yes. So my strategy is to start at the states because state constitutional amendments happen with quite regularity, and they really are driven by the people. At the federal level, it's a whole different ballgame, right? And we really know that if we tried to get a federal green amendment now today, we just couldn't succeed. And not only because the politics are so difficult, but because we haven't laid the foundation. Most people haven't thought about this concept. They don't know what a green amendment is. They don't know that they don't have a right to clean and healthy water out of their, in their homes, or a healthy breath of fresh air. So we have to do the work of letting people understand the power and importance of having this kind of constitutional entitlement. And to me, strategically, as a 30-year environmental activist and attorney, the best way to do that is let's go state by state by state, educating, organizing, and successfully securing green amendments, getting the benefit of the power, the legal power and strength they bring to environmental protection within a state. And while we're doing that, we will be creating the foundation necessary for, at some time in the not too distant future, to get a federal green amendment. So it's all strategy.
Okay, great. If you can list the states where you're going with this, and then there must be a central clearinghouse, that'd be great. George Ripley. George, you got your hand up?
Yeah, Maya, great project. My goodness. And is it a membership organization? Are have you got memberships going nationwide?
So I love that question, because my Green Amendments for the Generations is totally supported by donations and a few foundation grants, but the foundations have not stepped up in a big way. So it's really a whole lot of, hard work happening to advance this powerful movement. And so if people want to become members, it would be really powerful and really helpful. Membership, you don't have to pay to become a member, but if you'd like to become a member and make a donation, that would be appreciated. I put the main organization website in the chat, forthegenerations.org. That's for the national movement. If you go there, there's a tab for active states, and you can find the 15 states where green amendments are actively advancing right now. And you can also find a tab for Pennsylvania, Montana, and New York, of course, the 3 Green Amendment states that are already in existence. Oh, I wrote the message to only just Carl, my dear friend, Carl Grossman. I will change it so that everybody gets this information.
Well, George, did you get your question?
No, so your membership in each state might be around, if you've got an active campaign going in various states, then you might have 30 people in each of the various states where you're working, and are you working in coalition with some other environmental organizations?
Yeah. So first off, I don't really have a count of the numbers. Every state effort is different, and every state effort is driven by our partners in that state. And those partners include individuals and organizations and progressive political champions. And we come together on a regular basis and develop the strategy, and first the language, and then the strategy that is right for that state. And my work as the national expert on this and sort of the founder of this pathway and this concept is to really help inspire, educate, and empower the people from that state with the knowledge they need so they can be the champions and do the work. And I have the good fortune of working with people like Wendy and Melissa Martin, right? Carl Grossman in New York, that in their respective states, really do a whole bunch of that work right there in Florida. Wendy and Melissa are the ones that are working with others on the ground to organize volunteers that are spreading out and making this happen. And if you are from Florida, it's the Florida Right to Clean Water is where you're going to want to go to become an active volunteer in that state. Because in Florida, the Green Amendment effort it's an entirely volunteer campaign, and it's about people's petition. We need people to sign the petitions so that the amendment can ultimately be placed on the ballot for the people to vote on. In other states, the amendment is being advanced through a legislative process. So progressive legislators working with grassroots organizations are proposing and advancing the Green Amendment proposal. Once it passed through the legislative session, once or twice, depending on the state, then it goes before the people. So there are different kinds of efforts. And Florida is really the one leading the way on this citizen petition pathway.
Amazing stuff. I assume the wording of the amendment changes from state to state, or are you using a standard language?
No, you really can't. I have model language and I have key criteria, but Florida, New Mexico, Washington, Hawaii, Maine, right? These states, they're all very, very different. Texas and, their personalities. So what I do is I have key criteria and model language, and then I work with the leaders in that state to figure out what is the right language for that state. And in fact, on the resources page of the forthegenerations.org website, I actually just created a new step-by-step toolkit for creating a green amendment to really help give people the guidance to work to advance this. But the most important thing I encourage people to do is, take that good guidance, take that good information, learn from it, but please don't try to do this on your own. Let's work together in partnership and develop the right language for your state and the right strategy. Let me help you, because it's a very simple concept, but it's actually quite complex to get it right. And it's even more complex to take on the challengers who go after it and try to undermine it with a lot of misinformation.
Sounds fantastic. I'm going to call on Wendy and Carl, if you want to jump in real quick. You interviewed Maya, and then we're going to go to Rachel Coyle for the latest Michigas from Ohio. This is fantastic, Maya. You'll be back with us again, I'm sure. We have 67 people on the call. Wendy, go ahead, and then Carl, if you want to put in a quick word, and then we're going to move on. Go ahead, Wendy.
Thank you so much. I have so much to say, so I'm going to try to keep it limited. I love having Maya on so much. Her energy is always this amazing. Like, she's always just such an uplifting spirit and just so brilliant. And she's right. I mean, there's so many different nuanced forces, and in Florida we need like almost 1 million signatures, and there's just so many tiny little things. It's a fragile thing to have a ballot amendment, so it really is important to do it right and have the right kind of guidance and work as a team, because it's not something that anyone could do on their own. In Florida we have a single issue rule, a single topic rule, so like we can't do something that's like, oh, we want to protect the environment, the air, the land, the water, the sea, the everything. We have to just do one thing at a time. So we have the water one. In her book, which I highly recommend you guys, like, all the proceeds go to the cause. Like, she's awesome like that. And it's just such a great read. I highly recommend it. I'll just quickly read what the Pennsylvania Constitution has, where she found that and kind of was like, oh my God, this is the golden nugget, and really ran with it and made such an amazing movement. But this will give you a really good idea.
Okay,
and you know what? Actually, I turned to the wrong page, so I'm going to skip
so we'll
that.
do it in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, you can present it. No problem. Okay.
Cool. And
you want to say a word? Go ahead, Wendy.
Thank you. And I was just going to say, I know like there's some stuff in here about nuclear, so maybe you and Harvey can talk later about his work with the nuclear energy. And Dennis Bernstein's also on the call, and I would love for you guys to meet and talk sometime too. Thank you so much.
Dennis, you should interview Maya. Carl Grossman, you've interviewed Maya. Then we'll talk to Ruth Strauss, and then we're going to go to Ohio. Do you want to say a word or two about Maya? No, you're muted. Hold on. No. Carl, we probably have. Is your phone on? Is your I can't hear you, Carl. We can't get you. See if you can fix it. I'll come back to you in a minute. Ruth Strauss, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just a quickie. Maya, great presentation. Harvey, thank you for putting her on our radar. I can't get to your site. It's not loading, and I've tried 3 different browsers. So maybe so many people are on it, it's crashing or whatever. But I just wanted to let you know that. Do you know what's going on?
I'm on it right now. I've been loading pages to get the link. So maybe you're
right.
internet
I'll keep
moment.
trying.
Right,
Thank you.
And as I said, Ruth is a member of the KPFK board, and she needs your support. So join Pacifica. Okay, Justin, we're going to get to you, and then we'll go to Ohio with Rachel Coyle. Go ahead, Justin, and then Rachel.
Yes, so some other connection to federal law here. The Supreme Court may have gutted the EPA in its latest ruling, but in a previous ruling, it actually upheld the states' rights to have their own environmental laws and enforce them. So this is something that is a perfect strategy nationwide, is these green amendments in state constitution.
Okay, great. Thank you so
And-
much.
and-
Carl?
And just let me say, if I'm unmuted, is that the Green Amendment, Maya's Green Amendment concept has already achieved important victories right away, just a year and a half in New York State, because a court now can point to the Green Amendment and say, yeah, the defendant has, or the plaintiff has, the right to a clean environment.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Carl, for that. And thank you, Maya. Is there a Green Amendment in Ohio? Rachel Coyle, do you know?
Not that I've heard.
I heard
Not
that there,
People have asked a couple of times, so I'm still waiting for the champion who says, let's work on it. So maybe
Well-
that'll be Rachel.
I think in Florida, of course, Ron DeSantis has promised to execute anybody that works for a Green Amendment. So you gotta be careful down there, Wendy. Okay, thank you so much, Maya. We will have you back again and again. Thanks for that, Carl and everybody else. We have 67 people with us. Rachel Coyle, you're in the heart of the heartland there. What's the latest Michigas from Ohio?
So I'm glad that Maya was talking about the importance of citizen ballot initiatives, because here in Ohio, we are looking at an attack on the right for citizens to collect what is hundreds of thousands of signatures and put an amendment on the ballot and pass things like the Green Amendment or literally any issue. So here, one second, I'm going to share some links in the chat while I talk as well. So basically, Ohio has an election on August 8th. And there's literally going to be just one thing on the ballot in most parts of the state. That's issue 1. And what issue 1 would do is it would create minority rule in our state by allowing just 41% of voters to kill a proposed constitutional amendment. There is no coincidence that this is happening right now while voters are collecting signatures for abortion rights and to raise the minimum wage. It would also force Ohioans to gather thousands more signatures from all 88 counties instead of just the current 44, which is pretty much impossible to do unless you are funded by billionaires. So it would be very difficult for anyone to do a grassroots signature campaign to amend our Constitution. It would also remove the 10-day period that you currently get to go out and collect more signatures if you turn your initial batch in and you're a little bit short. And that's a critical 10 days for campaigns that get right up close to the edge and then they figure out they're like one county behind. So really what this would do is it make it so that pretty much only the state legislature and people who happen to have friends who are billionaires would be able to pass citizen-led ballot initiatives. So we are working really hard to get the word out about this election. Part of the problem is that the election is illegal. Ohio actually banned August elections last year, except for local fiscal emergencies, which obviously this is not one. And so most people don't think there's going to be an August election because they don't think we can have those anymore. And they also just, August elections have low turnout rates anyway. So we are spreading the word all over the state just to let people know that this election is even happening. And I've got here a website for you all. That if you want to help us make phone calls or send emails or texts, we would love to have your help in getting the word out. We need people to vote no on issue 1 on August 8th. I've also got the Ohio voter guide there because Ohio passed a bunch of new voter restrictions to make it harder to actually vote at all. Voter ID, some of the strictest voter ID in the country. So that website I just put in there will help folks figure out even how to physically vote in this election. And I've got several videos as well. If you're into TikTok, been making TikToks to make sure young people know what's going on. And it's been really difficult to watch because of all the different ways they've attempted to attack our rights throughout this process. For one, the ballot board, which is the group that actually puts the language on the ballot, passed the language. It's incredibly biased. It says words like elevating the standards to pass an amendment rather than something nonpartisan like change or modify the standards. It doesn't include language explaining what current law is. The language was so partisan at first that the Supreme Court forced them to go back and make it slightly better, and they still didn't change things like the word elevate. So it's very frustrating. There's a huge campaign of deception out there telling people that they're actually protecting the Constitution from outside interests by voting yes on this issue, which is just a blatant falsehood. So we could use any help anyone could do in spreading the word. And I'm happy to answer questions about that as well. I know that was a lot of information.
Well, didn't the Ohio Supreme Court uphold the holding of this election?
Yes, the Ohio Supreme Court decided they're going to let this election go through. And the only thing they did was they forced the ballot board to go back and make the explanation of what the law would do accurate. They actually had incorrectly stated how many signatures would be required to get on the ballot. And they had incorrectly said that it would apply to any constitutional amendment when actually it would only apply to ones that is citizens collecting signatures. So the legislature would not have the same signature collection barrier.
God, it never ends. And of course, Sherrod Brown, one of the great senators in the United States Senate, has to run for re-election in Ohio. I just, it's beyond me. Steve Caruso, did you want to say something here, please, Steve?
Yeah, the whole thing was passed by resolution, which is not how you create law. They created a law and a resolution doesn't undo it, so it's unconstitutional. Also, the money behind the change of this or backing this issue was Uline Company, which is also contributing to the January 6th rebellion. So they were saying, oh, we want to have this amendment because, we don't want special interest groups coming in here and doing their thing. And that's exactly what they're doing. So thanks.
Yes, thanks for
Rachel.
pointing that out. The person funding the entire Yes on Issue 1 campaign is, like you said, that billionaire from Illinois. He also is connected to January 6th. And it's pretty ironic that the argument of a yes vote would be to protect the Constitution from outside special interests when the entire campaign is being funded by a guy from Illinois.
Unbelievable. John Steiner, John, let's get you unmuted.
Yeah,
here.
here we go. Hey, Rachel, thanks for being on. I born in Cleveland, grew up in Cincinnati, still have a lot of friends doing whatever we can on this. Two things. I just went to your website, Innovation Ohio, and it says malicious site blocked. And it's actually very challenging to get into your site. So I don't know if you
That
knew
is not mine, but I can reach out to them and let their digital director know.
That would be great. And then the other thing, do you happen to be doing any work with Bob Furtick with democracy.com?
I don't believe so. I don't know that name, but let me put my email in the chat.
If you will put your email address in the chat, I'll send it to you. He's doing what he can. He has probably one of the best lists anywhere in the country, really, but state by state on active Democrats. And he's looking to raise some money on the digital side. I was just on a call with the folks that you may also know. Harvey knows them at the Movement Voter Project, who are working hard on this. And I can send you that information as well.
That'd be great. I am putting
So,
my email in the chat
Well,
right
that's what you're doing, and may we get through it enough people to bring them to the polls.
Yeah, Rachel, you need to be in touch with John Steiner here. He's a great mainstay of our movement. And I'm wondering, are they going to do anything to continue funding lobotomies for state legislators? Is that
I'll have to check the budget bill, which is also currently moving forward right now.
Now,
yeah,
Harvey, come on, let's just go back to a little LSD.
yeah, right. Now, microdosing would be a better requirement, I think. Dennis
right.
Goodson, you're on with us from the Flashpoint show. Rachel might be a great guest for you, as was Maya von Rossum. I don't know if you've ever had her on, Dennis. Okay, Rachel, anything else from Ohio that you can depress us with?
Sure. If you want to be a little more depressed, we've got a
Well,
toolkit for you. If you want to help us fight back against the attacks on literally women, children, the low income folks, elderly Ohioans, we've got a budget bill that is genuinely cruel going right now. And we've got a toolkit for folks who want to help us get some of these bad pieces pulled out. So I'll just put that in there for anyone who's interested, but it's all wild times in Ohio right now.
Oh God, it's so ugly. It's just, when I grew up in Ohio, it was a somewhat liberal state, and the transformation of Ohio into this pit of hell is very depressing. Okay, George Ripley, did you want to say something? I also want to take a quick minute, if you're still with us, Ray McClendon, to get an update from Georgia, and then we'll talk about the upcoming UPS strike. Go ahead, George.
The effort, the legislatures of all over the country, of the 25 or so states that empower their citizens with the ballot initiative, really are on a campaign to make it harder and harder for citizens to exercise that power and make laws of, by, and for ourselves. Have we done any program on that, Harvey? Have we brought in an expert on ballot initiatives throughout the country?
No, but it's a great idea. So let's share that possibility. When we reconvene in 2 weeks, we should deal with it. Absolutely. It's a very good idea. I mean, what they want to do in Ohio is make it 60%. What they're talking about in Florida is 67%. You know, I mean, it's outrageous, beyond outrageous. Okay. So, all right, Rachel, anything else?
No, I've depressed you enough for 1 week.
All right, well, go take a Valium and come back in a couple of weeks, and we'll be glad to have you with us. Thank you. I wanted to call on Ray McClendon. Ray, thank you for your invocation last week on Juneteenth. Do you got any news for us from Georgia? Let me unmute you.
Well, the good news does not come from Georgia, but it comes from Louisiana. The Supreme Court today just lifted their stay and dismissed that they were not taking the case on the appeal from Louisiana, which now paves the way for the first domino to fall after the Alabama ruling in Allen just a week ago, which means that we will likely get redistricted seats in Louisiana, which means we'll probably be able to pick up at least one more Black seat in Louisiana. And that is also going to open the door for remapping potentially to occur in Georgia as well as Tennessee. And we're actually looking at Mississippi as well. So this is great news that just by this one ruling alone, it could have impact in several different states across the Southeast going into 2024. So we are beginning to map out strategy now to look to go into those states as the redistricting occurs and get prepared for a major effort in 2024 to make sure that we can pick up those seats and get more progressives into Congress.
Yeah, it's quite astounding. These have been 5-4 decisions in which John Roberts and Brett Kavanaugh have sided with the side of democracy. I mean, has the NAACP been taking these guys on like junkets somewhere, or I mean, what's going on?
We don't have that kind of money.
All right. I mean, it is amazing that these two guys who built their careers on voter suppression have turned around on this redistricting situation. If that carries across the whole United States, that's going to have a major impact.
Absolutely. And we know that Republicans only have I believe it's a 4-vote margin now in the House. So the redistricting alone could turn the tide, all other things being equal. I certainly don't expect it to be equal, because I think some of the other congressional districts that voted Republican where Biden won in those districts, I think those are fair game as well. So we're looking at a great opportunity to take back the House in 2024.
Well, as my mother used to say, from your lips to God's ears. Okay, that's amazing news. Anything? Oh, well, here, Ruth Strauss.
No, that's it.
Oh, here, Ruth Strauss, did you want to ask something of Ray McClendon here? Ruth Strauss.
Unmute.
Yeah,
Oh,
you're good.
so this is actually to both of you and to everybody. Quite honestly, I'm not sanguine about this, recent bit with the court reversing the redistricting because, 5 months ago, they had outlawed the statute in Alabama that was supposed to give a district representation for a Black representative or Black district to get a representative. They struck that down. Now they've reversed. So, I don't know whether they're doing that because they're, in trouble with, all their little, financial shenanigans or what, but I really don't trust them. And I'm just wondering Ray, what you think about that, because it seems like, they've done a 180 and it's in the setting of getting caught with their pants down.
Well, we don't trust them. We're just going to take now the ruling and move forward with it in those jurisdictions to use them for whatever reason they came to their senses. We're going to use it to our advantage. We certainly do not trust, and we don't know what other underlying ulterior motive they have. You could very well be right with all of the attacks from that have been coming against the court and the low confidence in the court by the American public could be having an impact. Or Roberts could just finally be getting a conscience after throwing the country into disarray with the initial decision in Shelby 10 years ago. Whatever it is, we're going to take advantage of this ruling now. And since they have reversed course, this is going to have a domino effect. It started with Alabama, today Louisiana. It'll impact Georgia, probably Georgia and Texas, and hopefully Tennessee as well. So we're just going to take it for what it is on its face and use it to our advantage.
Well, let's hope. Dennis Bernstein has said the court is so corrupt they have to do something that looks normal. I will say in terms of the court that we got an astounding decision from Neil Gorsuch on indigenous rights. He wrote a really powerful opinion on the water issue in the Colorado River in favor of the tribes. Remember, his mother was the head of EPA and a terribly controversial state, to say the least. But Gorsuch wrote I was a very serious right winger, wrote a really a powerful pro-indigenous opinion. It kind of blew me away. Who knows? Justin LeBlanc. Ruth, is there more you wanted to say? Ruth, are you done? Okay, Justin, go ahead. Justin, let's get you unmuted. Then we're going to go to Carolyn to talk about the UPS strike. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, this court is what you have to look behind and between the lines on quite a bit, because a lot of these rulings are really to set up for future rulings on other cases. But in this particular one, we look to the past, because about a year and some ago, it was actually February 2022, the Supreme Court actually delayed action on this particular case, stating that there wasn't enough time, more than 9 months before a general and 4 months before a primary election, despite the state itself having created the district maps that were so bad in 4 weeks. And so really this is in view of like Harper versus Moore, where the attempt for state legislatures to override even their own constitutions and their own governors and their own Supreme Courts. And so this kind of preserves the way for them to do that, in the sense that the Supreme Court will dither while Rome burns.
Yeah,
so the election.
The Moore decision is really hanging over the whole country at this point in time. I mean, the Supreme Court could decide to turn over presidential elections to state legislatures, which is the way it was done originally, by the way. So, that's Ray, we're going to be watching that very closely. Okay, thank you for that, Ray, and thank you, Justin. A very perceptive observation. We're now going to go to Carolyn. Carolyn, apparently we're on the brink of the biggest strike in U.S. history. Do you want to talk to us a bit about that?
Yes. Hi, how are you? how's everyone? I first wanted to apologize because my signal is pretty unstable and I cannot get my video on. But the UPS workers are all organized through Teamsters. And we're talking about the largest company that does transportation of goods. And that's 350,000 members strong. And they're getting ready. They have been negotiating their contract, but the president of the International Union has let the UPS administration know that if they don't reach a contract by August 1st, when it will be past due, that they are going to go to strike. So it is not a thing to say that this will happen, but they're only approved in non-financial wins that they're having a TA, but they are not anywhere close to having the contract. So if that doesn't happen, the strike will start on August 1st, and it has the potential of being the largest and most significant strike on the past decades, and really a chance to leveling what it means for the working class to have a piece of what goods they generate, the money and the revenue that they generate should be shared with the employees. As you know, there's a lot of publications that say that CEOs of different companies make about 300 to 400 times the amount that is paid in average to their workers, and that is absolutely not right. The UPS strike really has the chance of showing the power of the working class and leveling the ground for that working class. So although it's not 100% sure that it's going to happen, because there's always a chance that UPS will come to their senses and approve this massive contract, then it does have this power of showing what the working class can do.
Fantastic. How many workers again would be involved?
350,000 workers, and it is nationwide. So, wow. As you know, because of the size of the company and the kinds of deliveries that they do, this has the potential of really halting the economy. And that's the leverage that they have, and that's the leverage that we want. I can tell you that I am a DSA Solidarity Captain. That means that I support with my colleagues the strikes that are happening throughout the nation, and we are particularly focused on supporting the Teamsters on this strike. On this possible strike, and that we are looking forward to seeing this because we see it as a chance for the working class and to establish the power of labor in that working class, so that we, hopefully excite the labor movement and excite more people to unionize and to become part of a union, support their unions, and be active with their unions as well.
Very good. Thank you for that, Carolyn. I want to ask a tangential question quickly. I don't know if anybody knows this answer. They follow the Postal Service, but why is this Louis DeJoy guy still running the Postal Service? He was put in there by Trump. He's just a total corporate buccaneer, pirate, and he's destroying the Postal Service. Why hasn't Biden gotten rid of this guy at the Postal Service? No, I mean, he's
an oligarch. He's an oligarch, and Biden is not gaining a lot of points on that one, you know.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to check with you. We need to talk about UPS in a couple of weeks, but also if we can get somebody to talk about the Postal Service. Our family business was involved with the Postal Service back in the 90s, and I love the Postal Service. I love postal workers, and I just don't know why this is still going on. Well, thank you for that, Karen. We're gonna get to Wendy, and then we're gonna. Well, let me say right now, if we're at the end here, to my listeners on the Green Power and Wellness Show at PRN, this hour will be ending for you. If you want to join us for the second hour, we're going to talk about energy, UFOs, and again, Pacifica Radio. Go to electionprotection2024.org. Go to our website, and you can get the recording for the second half of the show, which you're going to be losing now at PRN, having listened to the first half. Okay, thank you very much. Wendy Lederman, go ahead, and then we're going to switch over to energy issues.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just gonna ask Carolina while she's here if she wanted to maybe say a few of the demands that the UPS workers are asking for. I know that one of them is just to have air conditioning in their trucks while we're in these
come on. When they say, they want seats, for God's sake.
Right.
Windows,
They want
windows.
breaks.
So that part of the contract was actually just T8, which means that the UPS has finally agreed to saying that is needed and that they're going to provide it. It's still as a temporary agreement because it's not yet a contract, right? And this was tied to a worker dying in California because of a heat stroke. So it's really that severe. And places like here in Florida, where we just last week were in around 105 degrees Fahrenheit. This is inhumane not to have AC. Then the other another big point is that the workers want to end the two-tier system where you have temporary workers that are doing exactly the same type of work that the full-time workers are doing and getting just a fraction of their salary. So the solidarity of the people that are more secure economically is very transparent over here. The UPS workers want to have a uniform set of rules on their wages.
Okay, thank you for that. And Wendy, does that answer your question?
Thank you. Yeah, and I was just wondering if she has any links that she can put in the chat for any way people can support or promote, or if she wants to send to me and I can put it. I don't know if she has the ability, but people are asking to try to. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, I'll put some links over there in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you for that, and good luck to the UPS workers. let's hope that they that management comes to their senses and step down so we can get some decent. I mean, the ratio of executive salaries to worker salaries is obscene, to put it mildly. I mean, this is how you get idiots like Elon Musk in charge of major operations here. So, Carolyn, we want to wish UPS people good luck. We'd be glad to have a representative of the actual union. I'd love to have a representative of the union for UPS and of the postal workers to deal with what's going on here. I don't know why Louis DeJoy is still where he is. It's absolutely obscene that he's still running the Postal Service, and we need to get that changed. Okay, this is still the Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition. I want to repeat that we are asking people to please join Pacifica Radio, vote in the upcoming election, go to newdaypacifica.org, and he looks like Daddy Warbucks, this guy, DeJoy. And let's get him out of there, and let's have a decent management at Pacifica, for God's sakes. It should be a whole lot better than it is. All right, we're at the top of the hour. We're going to go to energy now. I don't see that Vinny DiStefano has joined us. We thought he was going to come on and talk about the Assange case. Maybe he will. I do want to start now with energy. I read an amazing article today or yesterday. Texas is undergoing a horrendous heat wave. And this article said basically that the solar panels in Texas are the only thing saving the state, that they, be completely short of energy, and all the AC would be out. And, you know, just like wind power in the winter, really, you know, there's more wind power in Texas than in any other state in the country, by far, by a factor of at least 2 for most states. I think Iowa is number 2, and I think Texas has 2 or 3 times as much energy from wind as Iowa does. And the one thing about Texas, I've said this before, when nuclear power, when they started foisting nuclear power on us, they said it would be too cheap to meter. And of course, that never happened. But actually, wind power in Texas is too cheap to meter. At night in West Texas, you can run your meter backwards. You can do your wash, run your computers, watch Pornhub, the whole thing with free electricity, because the wind is so powerful in West Texas. At night, they just throw it on the grid and they don't charge for it. They got to get it off the grid, actually. So now Texas is being saved in this horrible heat wave by solar panels. And there is one thing you need to know: solar panels actually work better in cold weather. That's why Colorado is perfect for solar, because it has 300 days of sun, but God knows how many days of cold weather. It's not the case in Texas, but nonetheless, the solar is working well. So I want to talk to Ron Leonard. Ron, are you with us? There are all sorts of developments going on. The major authority on investment in renewable energy in this country has shown that the majority now of investment in new electrical generation is now going to wind and solar. And that people, the number one bastion of anti-nuclear sentiment outside of my house in the United States is Wall Street. Wall Street is in no way, shape, or form wants anything to do with nuclear power. It's all the federal government and the military that's pushing it. Ron, do you want to comment on what's happening in Texas and around the country? And then we'll go to Tatanka to amplify and bring us to outer space. Go ahead, Ron.
So I think Texas is a wonderful case to quote, because Texas, as you mentioned, was a prime place that you would install lots of wind farms or solar farms. And they even welcomed, crazily enough, put your crypto computer farm there because we have plenty of power. We're good. But all of a sudden, the state legislature comes along recently, luckily they didn't win, and tried to prevent new solar or wind to be installed in the state. And of course, what they wanted to do was to install more legacy natural gas turbine power plants and basically have the people of Texas be saddled for probably a generation with legacy stranded assets, which is what you call a turbine power plant that you don't need for at least 30 years, because once you put it on the grid, the ratepayers are stuck paying for it. That's not really a great deal. So Harvey, you are correct that some solar systems have a problem with high temperature, but only the problem is that they operate slightly less efficiently. But in Texas, they do happen to have a installation that I know of by an American company that manufactures solar panels. It's called First Solar, and their panels don't care how hot it gets. So we have a solution under the sun, and the solution is 100% renewable energy.
Well, it is quite amazing that Texas is leading the way. You would think that the wind industry would have more clout politically in Texas. Why is the legislature able to continue kissing the behind of coal, oil, and gas?
Well, we probably should ask one of our friends that would know more about the local politics in Texas. But the key factor in this pushback is that they did not win. They failed. They tried, but they didn't win. So we don't have an open road in Texas as we did a year ago. But
It's there, and they know, and the ratepayers of Texas know who best serves them. Would it be, oh, I don't know, these power plants that they had there that was incapable of delivering power 5 years ago in the middle of the winter? Or possibly it is the nuclear power plant that they have there that they have to shut down in the summer because it's too hot. Can't run that nuclear power plant when it's too hot. Whereas the wind and the solar, it sort of works really well, and it's cheaper.
Yes, it is quite amazing, and this is a phenomenon that's going worldwide, is that nuclear power plants, especially ones on rivers, are having to shut down now because the water in the summer is too hot. And here these nuclear plants, everybody's counting on them to run their air conditioning, and because it's so hot, and they can't get coolant from the rivers. Especially that's happened in France. It's also happened in the United States. I'm waiting for it to happen at Palo Verde in New Mexico, Arizona, which is owned in part by the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. Which
So
is not a utility.
I have 2 words for you. El Nino. El Nino is a nasty little thing that's going to happen first in California and then probably spread across the United States, which is for the next 3 years, we expect to see higher water temperatures and much more rain and much more unstable weather conditions. And this is going to be a bad thing. And if you don't believe there's such a thing as global warming, I suggest you open up your window and look outside this summer and this winter, and you'll probably see some global warming issues.
Yeah, really. Steve Caruso, you have a hand?
Yeah, so these fires up in Montreal, what you have between here and Montreal, I'm in Ohio, or Greenland is Montreal. Why are they having fires up there? Or the Great Lakes is the juxtaposition. Greenland, Great Lakes, in the middle you have Montreal. Greenland is the coldest place in the Northern Hemisphere, okay? It's not the North Pole. Greenland's temperature the other day was a -4 at the noon, say. So the whole Northern Hemisphere cooling cycle revolves around that point in Greenland. So
Well,
yesterday, what?
Unfortunately, Greenland is noting significant ice melt, so much so that if you looked at the Atlantic Ocean with a heat map, you'll see this blue section in the water right below Greenland. That's fresh water.
I could give you a tour of it right now if you want on the screen
Yeah.
share. But so anyway, yesterday we have a festival in Columbus. You got storms to the north, storms to the south, and they call for tornado warnings. They had some tornadoes in Indiana yesterday. And the storm gets up to Columbus, and the heat dome from Columbus just completely stopped it. You had arrows going north and south saying the storm's coming, you know, and then all of a sudden it just disappeared, poof, out of nowhere. So yeah, that's just totally global warming issue. The fact that Montreal is having all these fires there between the coolest spot in North America, which is probably the Great Lakes because of evaporative cooling, and Greenland. Okay, so I think that's important, but you know, I'm not a professional scientist, I guess.
So if you want to make some money, buy a big boat that you can ship things on, because there's a new shortcut that you can get to the East Coast on, which is over the top of Canada called the Northern Passage. It's going to be free of ice. It'll be a good deal.
Well, Steve, you didn't tell the whole story though, because in Columbus every year they have ComFest, which is a fabulous festival, which is not, and that takes no corporate sponsorships. It's one of the best public festivals in the country, and every year there's this giant hot cloud that comes over ComFest, and I'm sure that affected the weather. George Ripley,
Microclimate.
want to add in, and then we'll go to Tonka Bricka. George?
Yeah, Ron, your humorous comment about the shortcut over the Northwest Passage is not necessarily humorous. It's really the last. You know, the word used to be "go west, young man." Well, now it's "go north, young man," because fish, every species is moving north. Trees are moving north. Fish are moving north. and megafauna are moving north, and we're running out of cold oceans for seafood production. And so literally the Northwest Passage may open up new terrain for salmon industry among local Eskimo villages up there, and fish farms. So it's a really interesting development. I mean, it's very sad, but it's worthy of some excitement for any young people that want the new frontier.
Well, there
And
is that
do you know-
movie. I can't remember the name of the movie, where the premise is that global warming causes the ice in the north, in the Arctic region, to melt and heat up, and it blocks the Gulf Stream, thereby turning the northern hemisphere really cold. It's been out. It's about 20 years ago. It's actually a very interesting movie. It was a dramatization, a high budget, kind of climate thriller, but it was a really interesting premise that some people actually take very seriously, is the stoppage with the fresh water of the Gulf Stream. People might want to track it down. I don't remember the name of the film. I want to say The Day After Tomorrow, but I think that was about nuclear war. So if anybody remembers the name of that film, please let us know. Mary, I'll get to you, but I've been having a Tatanka wait on hold for quite a while. Tatanka, do you want to talk to us first about climate and then about the UFO dimension on energy and how, of all the free energy of which we've been deprived all these decades?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you, bro.
Okay. Well, I may take 3 minutes to say I'm not sure anybody remembers on the run up to the 2016 election, and then when Trump took office, Danny Sheehan traced a deal that seemed to be going down, where through Tillerson of Exxon and Putin, there was a deal for the Russian petroleum, the National Petroleum Company, to be sold off to a group that had 4 components. 3 were well-known extractive industries. The 4th was a real mystery, but we know about it because Trump opened his mouth at an event, which was witnessed and taped. And the deal was to sell off the rights to oil and natural gas from Russia to this entity, and it included the entire Arctic Circle that is within Russia. And most of us may not remember that it was timed with TV ads of the benefits of having no ice over the North Pole, how wonderful it's going to be. I don't know if you remember that. It was about 3 months those were coming out. And then it found out that the mystery person on the 4th beneficiary, this is the largest supplies of undeveloped oil and natural gas. The big problem is they can't get to it until they melt the ice. Okay, so it kind of answered one question: why these extractive industries, and including Donald Trump and the climate deniers, wanted this, because the contact ended up to be Donald Trump's business financial advisor. And the word got out, and the deal went south because it was going to be, it would have made Trump one of the wealthiest people in the world. Anyway, past history. So right now, Danny Sheehan has been very quietly, one of his hobbies, he calls it, for nearly 50 years, has been the legal counsel of mainly military people who have needed legal support and representation when they've tried to go public with what's going on with UFOs and the US military and their relation to the corporate part of our country. So Danny took on a client, Luis Elizondo, about 2 years ago, which resulted in Danny having meetings within the Pentagon with the Inspector General of the Pentagon, with generals, et cetera. and basically in defense of Luis, who was the top person in the Pentagon, who was being prevented from doing his job of reporting information from military people about UFOs and ETs. And then he was slandered and by the Pentagon and saying they didn't know him, although he'd been in charge of this for 2.5 years. So he sued the Pentagon. Danny's his attorney. So over a year ago, Danny had a meeting where he said, it's a pattern with the UFOs that when climate change gets worse, and definitely when nuclear war potential gets worse, that the UFOs swarm Beijing, they swarm Moscow, and they swarm DC. Everyone here in this room, we all know since World War II that we're not alone. We know that craft has been downed, it's been reverse engineered. You've studied 60 to 70 species of people that come from other places in our solar system and beyond. But now it's too dangerous because the blame game is on. Even though a small group of people knows this, it's increasing the potential for nuclear war because US will be blaming China, China will be blaming, et cetera. So they finally relented, and the upshot was that Danny wrote a law which was signed into office without much fanfare by Biden 2 days before Christmas, which set up a civilian office in the Congress, and the Department of Defense, all aspects of the military, the intelligence community, and private contracting corporations are ordered to turn over everything they know about, I'm going to use the word ETs and UFOs, into this office by the latest of June of next year, but there are deadlines to get started. And Danny wrote the thing, it's a law now. And that resulted in about 3 weeks ago, another guy who was the top military guy who didn't even know about the existence of a secret program, had people talking with him about it. So he went public. And then Danny spent almost a week just constantly on the phone with the New York Times and Washington Post, et cetera, giving them information. Dr. Stephen Greer, who's a client of his, who was responsible for the 2001 Disclosure Project, which was a 2001 Washington Press Corps event, had another one 2 weeks ago today.
Oh.
You can go online, you can say disclosure, June 12th, 2023 disclosure. If you want to put in Dr. Stephen Greer, it'll come up and you can see 3 hours, which set this all off. I'm going to suggest that people watch a film that Greer and others, including Charles Eisenstein, a number of people put together, called The Lost Century and What We Can Do About It. It's a brand new film, so go online. You can actually get to it and see it free. I don't have the link right with me, but it's viewable. Carol and I have seen it. And it basically documents not just the UFO phenomenon that military people know that those craft have been downed and reverse engineered, and they, at least for 100 years, since the 20s, definitely by the 50s, that we've had that energy, US paid for, which could power the whole world. It's free energy for the whole world. It's what they call zero-point energy. It's the Tesla energy. It's utilizing the movement of the magnetics of the earth. And in the film, before even going to UFOs, they talk about a dozen inventors who invented machines that you might put in a half a volt and get out 5,000 volts, for instance. It's like putting in almost nothing, getting out more, which by classical physics is supposedly impossible. Well, then he tells the story about what happens to these people because they want to do the standard thing, and they underestimated the opposition. Standard thing being you get a patent, not knowing that all branches of the military are in constant contact with the patent office. They know what's going on, and they either try to buy it out, and if they can't, they threaten, and if that doesn't work, lives get lost. So Stephen Greer documents all the lives lost, starting with the 20s and going through the 50s and up into the 70s and 80s, okay? People trying to get this out. Well, the time is now, and they may not be able to put the lid back on this because there's now legislation to get whistleblower protection. There's a number of people, more and more people are coming wanting to tell what they know, because it turns out that Lockheed and Raytheon and others have aircraft, and some of them took off right from 2 miles where I used to live in the Santa Cruz Mountains that people have viewed before. And they can go 20,000 miles an hour, and they have the cloaking devices, and they are going in out of other countries doing whatever they're doing without anybody knowing it in those countries. So they're messing with things, and the time for that disclosure is now. It's possible that we could have free energy, water, food for the entire planet within the next 10 years, if this were to come out. Now, you know the story of Tesla. It was J.P. Morgan with the extractive industries that had a plan for 100 years or more of electricity and of fossil fuels coming up against Tesla, who would basically prove that you can take the magnetics of the planet and have decentralized free energy for everyone. And so he was basically bankrupt by J.P. Morgan, and then his reputation. It was a sad fate. But there are people separate from the ET issue that have followed his science and tried to get this out for 100 years. So the time for this secret is to come out. That's what this film talks about, the lost century from the 1920s to the 2020s, and what we can do about it.
Is that film?
Also, you can get that Disclosure Project thing if you key that in.
Is that film on Netflix or?
I don't even remember what it is,
Okay.
but if you have difficulty, I can get it to you and get it out to everybody.
Pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot to get your mind around, but the key points are we're not alone, and that what we're doing is affecting other people who are our neighbors in the system. And indigenous people have as part of their creation story. I don't know a tribe that doesn't have a story about which star system, whether it was the Pleiades, where they came from the dog star. They all have, the ones that I know, all have a story about how they come from the star nations, and they're on Earth now. So this is not, it's not a secret from everybody.
Well, there it is. Voodoo, VUDU, is asking $9.99. But there's a whole listing here. Steve, thank you for putting this up. Wow, that looks pretty amazing. All right, I will watch it. I got to get through my Fukushima movie, which is incredibly depressing. But anyway, thank you for that, Tatanka. Let's open up for some questions. Mary Butler Stonewall, did you want to say something? Are you unmuted? There you go. She's not unmuted, Mary. Go ahead. No, not yet. Steve Kaiser, you haven't spoken. And Eric Lazarus. Steve Kaiser, are you unmuted?
And now I was trying to get to the button.
Go ahead.
Thanks for what you just presented there, Tatanka. I'd like to mention that J.P. Morgan actually died in 1913, and he pulled the money out from underneath Tesla and the building of the Wying Cliff Tower out on Long Island because of Marconi and wireless communications. So J.P. Morgan was long dead in 1913 before a lot of things are blamed on him. He's got a share of blame coming up to that. But I'm glad you're talking about UFOs. I've never seen that subject really carried here. But if people will research Linda Moulton Howe, and I would suggest they go to her website, Earth Files. She talks about us being in contact regularly with 6 alien races. And beyond that, she's estimating at 60-some races that we are aware of at this point. And I would even put it back further than a century. Probably the Aurora, Texas crash in 1897 was the first time we had solid proof that a craft came down with somebody that didn't look like any of the rest of us. So, but we didn't get a lot of information from that. That didn't come down until we got the Cape Girardeau crash in 1941. And then, of course, the big kahuna was Roswell in 1947. They were completely unprepared for that. There were 5 aliens, 3 were dead, 1 was dying, and another one, J-Rod, lived for another 5 years, allegedly. So, and then they're ready for anything that comes down now. They get in there, they cordon it off, they vacuum up anything, and they're gone by dawn. So they're ready for that now. But this is a reality. And these are really opening times. You think about it. I mean, there's gay marriage. Who would have thought that a few years ago? Or legalization of marijuana damn near everywhere. So these times are changing. The whole UFO alien thing can no longer be kept under wraps, and it's going to be a part of our reality from here on out.
Thank you. That's wonderful. The reason, pardon me, just the reason.
Yeah, go.
The reason they talked about a century wasn't that before then down craft wasn't known about. It's just that the ability of us to reverse engineer it was secured by then, and especially by 1954 during Eisenhower's reign. And, you know, it makes you hear Eisenhower's speech about the military-industrial complex a little differently, because he realized he lost control where the black budget of the U.S. government was basically overtaken and being run now by the corporations, who kind of decentralized everything and made it so that no president could keep track of what they were doing.
Well, I think the lead candidate for a space alien now is that guy they just drafted in San Antonio. I mean, have you seen that kid? He's like 7'5". He towers over to the tallest guy. Well, anyway, that's another story. Mary Stonewall, you disappeared on us. Eric Lazarus, you haven't spoken yet, Eric. Are you? You're unmuted, Eric. Go ahead.
The Ezra Klein interview with Leslie.
Can't hear you, man.
The Ezra Klein interview. Remember, just stuck it in the.
Eric, we really can't hear you. You gotta improve your audio. Okay.
I just
there you
hear
go.
just look at the chat. There's a wonderful interview that Ezra Klein did with one of the reporters that has done a lot of work in this area. I think it's
okay. Good.
Fine.
Thank you, Eric. Mary Butler Stonewall.
Yeah. You guys were talking about invisibility, and you guys were talking about climate change and UFOs. I've grown up around UFOs my whole life, living in 48 out of 50 states. At some point in my life, I've seen a lot of UFOs. But I've also seen UFOs that had everyday humans in them, not fucking aliens. Excuse my language, not aliens. But I wanted to bring up something that a lot of people don't realize, that our government is like 50, 100 years ahead of us in technology. And I've been privy to manuals, seeing manuals that have probably 6,000 pages in it. And it's all on how to operate a bodysuit, an armored suit that these soldiers wear that actually uses mercury and does light reflection. So basically, you could have a soldier in your front yard and you would never see him or her. And this same suit, in the heels of the shoes, they have this little mechanism that when they step down and do a certain thing with the suit, I didn't get to read the whole thing, I just get to review the manual. It basically can let the man or woman jump 10 stories straight up. And this stuff is bulletproof. It's light bending in the aspects because of the mercury infused into the suit. That's how come the government made it where we can't hardly even get mercury. It's because they're using it all up, just like they took away our gold rights. You know, we're not allowed to hold raw gold. We're supposed to turn it in for cash, or it's got to be a coin or something that they say is okay. It's got to be in the form the government says is okay. So there's a lot more going on than people realize. And then with the climate and everything, the biggest problem with that is, number one, they broke our northern jet stream. And so that's how come the weather's been so bad. It's been broke almost 15 years with all their chemicals or whatever they've been doing. So that whole northern hemisphere jet stream is broken. That's come You see the perfect star jet stream below. It used to be that way above. I've been watching weather for years, and we had that jet stream above that created a 5-star. You see it on planets too. It has a little 5-star it creates at the top and the bottom with the wind flow. We don't have that up north anymore. It's a big jumble, and that's how come the weather is so unpredictable. And then you have the Fukushima and the United States and any other country that's been dumping nuclear waste into the ocean with all the volcanoes they just found in the ocean. Think about how many of those drums are opening up and mixing with that and making it worse. You know, so it's a bigger scope than people realize, besides the fact that, you know, we've been building the same way for how many years, and still we build to have our communities crumble. Instead of building them to flow with nature, we build them to resist nature, and then we wonder why our communities are never safe, and our home is no longer a shelter. You know, we'd have to go in a cave to have shelter.
Okay.
According to building codes.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you for that. Jeffrey, 1 point, just 1 point, please.
Right before Justin speaks, just to say it would be useful sometime to have a conversation about space and what's been happening there for our entire lives, because we don't think about it much. I mean, all our government money going up there.
Let's get to that in a minute. Jeffrey, 1 point, please.
When I was young, I actually saw a UFO formation. I tried to take a picture of it, but with my old camera, I couldn't actually do it, you know. And the next morning, there were weird holes in the sand dunes that I was at, where I was camping at. So that could be proof that there were UFOs here around here. Plus, also, Tatanka, what you just talked about, I just put in the chat box something that to back up what you were saying. Have you ever heard the story of Project Blue Book, the drama series in the History Channel?
Yeah, sure. That's probably known by many people on this channel. It's an important part of our history.
Yeah, right. I'm a big fan of the Ancient Alien Astronauts series, which I think is on Netflix.
History Channel.
It's on the History Channel, right? All the very convincing archaeological evidence of pre-visits. You know, there are mounds. There was a city, the biggest city among the indigenous in North America was called Cahokia. It was outside what's now St. Louis, and they estimate about 20,000 people live there, which was way bigger than almost any other settlement before the whites came. And it's surrounded by mounds, very substantial mounds. And none of the indigenous had any idea where the mounds came from. They weren't from, you know, the indigenous that we know and love. They were from way before those people. So very interesting in that score. Justin,
just like the Easter Island heads that were on Easter Island. Who knows how they got there?
Right, that's absolutely true. Justin and Wendy, and then Steve again, and we'll go back to Tatanka.
So everybody thinks that space is the final frontier. I'm going to say that the sea is the final frontier. I don't know if you've all seen the TV series Sequest, but one of the interesting things in real life that happened recently is a guy who built experimental aircraft ended up dying being crushed in his own submarine at 12,000 foot depth. Some business investors are thankful it wasn't them because they pulled out last minute. But what's important to note is that beyond that real life drama, there's another one called Puff the Magic Reefer. Puff the Wonders of the Reef, about a little fish who actually takes us through the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, and they use microscopic cameras to give us all sorts of detail about the immense life chain that sustains our planet. And so if we really want to understand what we're truly protecting when it comes to talking about life as being all critical, then that is a great movie, Puff the Wonders of the Reef.
All right, good. Thank you for that one. Wendy, go ahead, Wendy.
Thank you. So just a couple of quick points. One, I used to I volunteered at an observatory for about 5 years before COVID started, where I was manning the telescopes and like teaching people about.
Oh, you got muted.
It was the aliens.
There
They
you
heard
go.
me. It's giving away too many secrets. So I've definitely I've seen things with my own eyes, like through telescopes, like out in space. I've just seen like anomalous things, like even where I've call other people over, be like, "Are you seeing this?" With through the scope, not even through a screen. I've in my own yard, I've seen. It sounds crazy, but I watched a small triangular disc chase off a plane that was spraying a chemtrail. I watched it myself, and it was pretty wild. And I also have photos, I do photography, and I have long exposure photographs over the ocean of some really, really anomalous things that I was actually watching a brief interview with and I guess I don't want to say Navy pilot, Air Force pilot, but somebody was telling a story that would really kind of confirm some of the photographs that I've taken. And apparently these pilots and even people at sea, they're seeing things and reporting things apparently to the FAA on a daily basis, but it's so customary that it's doesn't go anywhere, that it's that's just basically what happens. They don't even report it anymore. So having something set up and having this conversation to get it into the public discourse, like we're doing now, what Danny's doing, what Satanka's talking about, and you having the platform, Harvey, is really, really crucial for, and also the angle of this potential energy that we never needed war or climate change, which is what the mass media is neglecting. That's pretty important. But creating this platform and creating this dialogue so that more people can start just coming out and talking about what they're seeing, what the reports are, and through all the falsities, because there's also Project Blue Beam, where, they can use holograms and different forms of manipulation and trickery to make people think that they're seeing things when they're not. So they just get scared and it can create chaos. So somewhere in between, we have to come to a truth and find out what it is, how can we benefit from this and not blow it out of proportion and move on and evolve as a culture, as a species. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Kaiser, then Myla. Steve Kaiser, go ahead. And then Myla will unmute you. Myla, you can remind us about Pacifica again. If you have a minute.
There we go. I'm going to get the mute off. Harvey, you live in Ohio, down along the Ohio River there, or at least you used to. There are so many mounds, particularly in Ohio, but on over into Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, on up to New York. There are these mounds all over the place. And they've excavated several of those. I know in my home state of Indiana, in the northern part, they have found people buried in these mounds that are 9.5 feet tall. So this is a whole nother issue beyond the UFO and alien thing. Well, I think they're probably obviously aliens of some sort, but that's the thing with Cahokia, that a lot of those are mound builders too. And the existing native populations talk of a preceding group of humans that lived there that weren't them, that they didn't know about, that sometimes they even came into wars with, like in Nevada at Lovelock Cave. The Paiutes organized to fight what was depicted as red-haired, green-eyed, six-fingered giants. And it's thought that the Anunnaki may well have been these red-haired 9-10 feet tall giants, even much taller. So anyway, this is a long overdue. It's getting back to the fabric of reality in so many levels, and people have had enough. They're interested in the truth for a change.
Steve put something up, Nephilim. I saw a very interesting documentary, very well done and convincing, that basically said there was a whole other civilization on Earth around 12,500 years ago, and that there was a giant flood. And that's why there's a flood myth all over the world in unconnected communities, that a flood destroyed civilization as such as it was. And it linked that to the Serpent Mound in Ohio. The Serpent Mound makes no sense whatsoever unless you see it from the air. And it's perfectly done. I have been there once, long time ago. And it dates it. There's the mouth of the serpent. There's an aspect to the mound that points directly at the solstice, but it's off by a few degrees.
Mhm.
And if you correct those few degrees, you get to 12,500 years ago, which has corresponding features all over the globe tied to what apparently was a flood, an apocalyptic flood. And the local indigenous knew nothing
Right.
about where this mound came from. Same as Cahokia. And then I recommend the Ancient Alien Astronaut series. I mean, it's a lot of fun. They're well done, but some of that stuff is mind-boggling. For example, the base measurements at
Cahokia.
Teotihuacan in Mexico are exactly the same as the base measurements of some of the pyramids in Egypt. I mean, to the foot. It's ridiculous, and lots of other stuff like that. So,
Real quick, just before you go, Sluggo, Tanaka, you talk about what Eisenhower did. Yeah, apparently, he entered into a treatise called the Granada Treatise, something like that, in the mid-50s, and they did exchange some of their technology for things that we could do with them, like allowing them to abduct people if they brought them back unharmed, that kind of thing. But the TR-3B, which is an equilateral shaped UFO with a light like in each corner of the three corners, a TR-3B, that almost certainly is ours, that we've developed, we produced from the help of aliens with this technology.
Well, of course, there's a lot of talk about the Nazis getting the technology from.
Oh, that's a whole different long
I was
subject.
going to say,
And
there's
it's
a whole
substantive.
discussion to be had about our connection with the Nazis, and about the South Pole in particular is a key way of understanding it.
Another lengthy argument.
Yeah, I
Well,
know.
it's a discussion, I think, since our species in such dire straits, that, it's people are looking for stuff, and I think they're finally opening up to what could come from another place.
They have to. It's too big at this point. It's tumbling over.
The key is that you can determine, Dr. Gur's been taking people out for almost 2 decades now, to make what they call, 5D, to make contact. And you can visually determine the difference because, the man-made ones have grommets. They have a different thing. It's not the same extraterrestrial metal. But the key thing is that there's an argument about the different races and whether they have our own good foremost in mind. I have my opinions on that. It's not important. But the important thing is that with that technology, if they really wanted to mess with us, they could have. And right now, we have that technology, and it's part of a whole disinformation campaign that goes pretty deep and has been for a while. Discussion in circles about the abductions. Is that really part of the U.S. plan? Most of these things are now arguably China and other people have it, but this has really been pioneered by the United States. So there is a way to determine what the difference between UFOs that are us and UFOs that are not from here.
Very interesting stuff. Myra, go ahead, Myra.
Well, you read my mind, Sluggo. I was just going to interject. I just thought it was time for a little interruption to remind people that we just have just a few days left, that June 30th is the very last day to become a member of your favorite Pacifica radio station. And if you don't live in Washington, D.C., or New York City, or Houston, Texas, or Los Angeles, or the San Francisco Bay Area, you can still, because of the wonders of Zoom technology and virtual meetings, you can still adopt your favorite Pacifica radio station and become a member today so that you will be able to vote in this year's station board elections. And I have just, again, I've been kind of not spamming the chat, but I've put in the chat a few times the link to New Day Pacifica. And I'm going to just share my screen for a moment here so that I can show you what you do. you go to New Day Pacifica, if you can see that now, and there's the website, and you just scroll down, and soon you will find do your part to save Pacifica and your station, or the station that you adopt. And we've created links on this website to donate and become a member. You have to have donated a minimum of $25 in order to become a voting member. It is a poll tax. You pointed that out, Harvey. Sad but true, but the Pacifica needs the money, and the stations do need the money to, to broadcast perspectives that are not held, not easily heard elsewhere. And you're really donating money and participating for the potential of what Pacifica can do and can be, because these signals are extraordinary. The signal at KPFK in Los Angeles is the largest city west of the Mississippi, if not the whole country. It has the potential to reach millions upon millions of people. WBAI in New York City is right smack dab in the middle of the FM dial, and again has the potential to reach so many people. And the 200 or more affiliates stations pick up and share extraordinary programming, like David Barsamian's alternative radio originates from a station in Boulder, Colorado, that is part of the Pacifica affiliate network. So I really, really can't overstate, and I know most of you have done it, but I have gotten questions from people in Wisconsin and other places wondering, well, they don't live in one of the 5 major signal areas. And so I hope I cleared that up. Please adopt one of the 5 major stations. Make sure to donate a minimum of $25 so that you will be eligible to vote for Harvey at KPFK.
Tatanka.
And Tatanka.
Wendy.
And Wendy in DC, I believe, and all and I'm not going to be running. I will be on the board again. Kat Kramer is running for the KPFK board, and we've got Stephen Donziger running for the board at WBAI. So thank you for the time, Harvey. I just really wanted to make sure that people don't delay, because we only have 4 days left to become eligible to vote, or even to run if you we can certainly use your energy to run as well. So thank you so much. I'm going to stop this share now.
Thank you. And Julie Bean has asked why Bill for New Day is because the people who are currently running Pacifica have made a total mess, and they're running pro-nuclear propaganda, and they've driven the station into very serious financial and technical difficulties. So we are competent and committed to a progressive agenda.
Harvey,
So,
before you, I want to hear from the speakers. I very quickly want to say that anybody who really feels they have would love to run, I'd welcome people. I mean, I'm only here because I can't imagine my life without Pacifica. And I think we can underestimate its importance the same way we're finding out all the little ways that people prevented nuclear war, all the ways like the movement and the madman that came out after the film, The Boys Who Said No. It was people in DC that prevented, Nixon from bombing Hanoi with nuclear weapons. We don't know the effect we're having until long after. And Pacifica has had an enormous effect. It's the only station really listener sponsored. And so we together, the Pacifica community, have told the people's history of the United States. And that's had far more impact than we realize. Our opposition knows, and that's why they want it. So just think of doing all you can do and how you would rue the day if you didn't do more, because it's now owned by a Christian evangelical bunch of people who are willing to put up $50 million and steal all this from the people.
Thank you, Tatanka. Thank you, Julie, for asking about that, and Myra for the exposition. Robin Harper, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I think if there were aliens, civilizations that were still thriving, they would probably come down here and try to help us stop our nuclear disaster we're facing. It's going to exterminate the whole human race. And I don't think they've done it. You know, we're heading for a nuclear disaster at any moment, and if it doesn't,
there could be more than
kill
one.
everybody.
There could be more than one group coming down here as well. So
Yeah, but they would try to help us out to save us from our tribal instincts and all the crazy stuff that we're doing.
well,
So I think they self-exterminate like we're doing at a very fast rate.
So one of the beautiful things on the movie that you'll hear that most of you probably know, pardon me, I interrupted you.
no, go ahead, go.
It is reports by military people on how they have at crucial times and crucial places disable our technology to do what they can. But the main message is that when they've landed, and it's been consistent for our entire lives, that you're poisoning your planet. And you think you're the only people in the world. You're in an outskirt of an entire civilization that you're part of. And what you do here affects us. And now, in addition to just the possibility of nuclear war or a dead planet, it affects us because the military has been sending these powerful rays out there that are actually capable of harming beings on other nearby planets. It's a lot to take on, but we're not alone, and that's the good news, you know.
Yeah. Lynn Feinerman, you had a hand, Lynn.
But they're not going to overcome our free will.
Lynn
Yes,
Feinerman?
I would like to respond to Robin. You know, I hate to say this, Robin, but there are a lot of things you and the rest of us don't know about. Some of them are detailed in a book called Spy Fail by James Bamford. Some of the horrible, frightening, close encounters, close situations that have occurred on this planet are just breathtaking. And somehow they have been handled and kept at bay. And so I think that you know, just because you don't see it doesn't mean they're not helping.
Yeah, you got that. Mary, and then I want to go back to Tatanka. You were going to talk about outer space, Tatanka. Actually, can you tell us now what you were going to say? And then we'll go to Mary.
You're talking to me? Who are you talking to?
We'll let Mary talk, and then.
Okay, terrific.
So you're going to
Go
say
ahead, Mary.
something about outer space. Go ahead, Mary.
I just want to let you guys know that every plant, including your grass in your front yard, draws in sun and puts electricity into the ground. And twice now, I know two different people that came out with the electrode mats that you put on the ground, and then you plant your garden and your grass and everything. And those mats bring in electricity in your house, so you don't need solar panels and you don't need wind generators, because the plants that are putting sun from the sky put the electricity in the ground. And when the planet gets charged enough, the sky gets charged enough, when there's a good storm, we get to watch that electricity go back and forth between the sky and the ground. So please, people, think about the aspect that we need to even surpass the wind generators and the solar panels, because our whole front yard is a solar panel.
I like that. That's good.
Yeah.
Tatanka, you were going to say something about outer space.
Well, we have very little time. We're past the time we should be doing we should have been doing 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And so what Mary's saying is right. I mean, we have a way of powering the energy needs of the planet, of taking, you know, some water out of the air in a desert, of growing the food that we all need individually. Imagine the whole North Africa coming back from desertification. I mean, we have this at our disposal, and we don't have to do any of the extractive that solar requires, and all the input of energy. That means when you take all the mining and the transportation and the metal and all that stuff to create anything by our old energy paradigm, that the efficiency is so little. When you're dealing with zero, and when you're dealing with what they call a free energy system, which is a different paradigm, which says that there's enough energy in a coffee cup to power everything if you really, you know, get to it. But you can do it in a safe way that Tesla taught and people have followed. And everyone that's tried to bring that out, where we can very safely and without any poisons take care of ourselves, that's a big thing. And it can be done in a decade. We could be an entirely different place in a decade, not take a century or half a century or 40 years or 30 years or even 20 years, because that's going to be too late for most of the planet. Go ahead.
Cool. Wendy, go ahead. We're nearing the end, so if anybody wants to get in a word in edgewise, now's the time to raise your hand, please. Wendy?
Thank you. Yeah, you guys are also, you're reminding me of a few things. There's the rodin Coyle, which is a guy that made open source through his own base 10 geometry, where he made a coil, like you said, you put in a little bit and it comes out, and it's people on YouTube like are making their own everywhere. Nassim Haramein, I put a link for his YouTube. He discovered like a black hole in each proton by doing his own equations, but he also researched ancient civilizations and free energy, and proposed that the Holy Grail was actually an energy generator. You're also, Mary just reminded me of Wilhelm Reich. Like Tesla was, you know, basically, like, as a person, he was abolished. You know, he was like jailed for all of his discoveries with the orgone generator, where you could cure cancer and also create rain clouds. And with his devices, people are creating like electroculture, where they're boosting their plants in their gardens. And so that I just wanted to orgone energy, Julie just put it in the chat, but just real quick, someone in the chat, Denise, asked about the phosphate roads in Florida. And so I'm using this electroculture in the gardens just to segue real quick to a quick announcement about the phosphorus that's mined in Florida, which is like more than anywhere else on the planet, which is generally used for fertilizer, which we clearly don't really need. There's alternatives for it. They create this huge, they're called phosphogypsum stacks that are like kind of hidden away, but they're massive and they don't know what to do with, like, they're radioactive as they decay. So there's a bill that is like basically sitting on DeSantis's desk right now, where they want to use that phosphogypsum, that radioactive phosphogypsum, as aggregates in the roads to test for it anyway in Florida. But that's really something that's an actual reality, where they're really considering making the roads radioactive. And I'm just thinking, well, cool, when we have these sewage floods, that might glow too. So hopefully in 2 weeks we'll be able to do a little bit more of a report on that. And I know Lynn and I were talking about something, so I'm slowly working on that for her. So we'll have more on that. So I appreciate the question, but none of this is needed. None of this is needed. And the fact that we accept this as a society without resistance, like we need PACIFICA to get the word out and get people organized. Thanks so much for the tangent.
Amazing. Thank you. Patricia has said she's gone to the KPFK page to try and become a member. The pledge is automatic enrollment. If you have trouble, go to newdaypacifica.org or contact Myra Reason and she'll help you with it, I hope. If you have further problem, call me as well. But newdaypacifica.org is where you want to start with. Jeffrey, we'll go to you and then we'll finish with Steve Caruso. Jeffrey, go ahead.
All right. Something I wanted to ask about There's something I want to ask. Does Mimi Kennedy know about the Diablo Canyon nuclear thing?
Believe me, yes, she does. She does indeed. And thank you for
Oh,
that question.
all right.
Everybody needs to know about the Diablo Canyon.
Because I
nuclear-
think that she should be involved in the
She is,
project
she
too.
is. She is. Thank you for that, Jeffrey. And we are really trying hard to shut Diablo Canyon before it blows up. So thank you for raising that. Steve, you get the last word. This has been a
Yeah,
wonderful
something I saw pretty amazing was gardening in, I think it was New Mexico, where they take these barren streets, and when it rains, they collect the water and preserve it somehow in the rain catch basins or whatever on the edge of the street. And the whole thing is just like the whole community's changed. They've been doing this for years. I was trying to find a link to it, but it's just amazing transformation from a desert to a lush garden with just what you have. You know,
Well, they'd have a lot more water in the desert if they'd shut the Palo Verde nuclear plant, which evaporates God knows how many gallons of water per minute. Thank you for that, Steve, and thank you for engineering, Steve Russo, much appreciated. Wendy, thank you, Maya, all you folks that help. We still, after 2 hours, have 43 people on the call. So there you go. Tatanka, I guess we're going to give you the last word.
Wait. Before you have the last word, Tatanka, Patricia's been asking, and I just want to clarify, yes, $25 will make you a member. And please, Patricia, I gave you my email. If you seem to be having some problem with the KPFK site, I really want to know about that. So please reach out to me, and we want to document all the problems anybody's having. So sorry about that, and sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to clarify.
Thank you. I want to say hi to Alyssa back in Chicago. And Alyssa just came up, she was cleaning up her house and came up with a letter I sent her from Paris in 1967, asking her to meet me at the Eiffel Tower at 1 in the morning. There you go. I'm dying to know if we actually connected with, so we did actually in Paris. So there you go. Tatanka Bricka, you get the last word.
Yeah, I just want to say that it's we don't have to really understand everything about the physics of what we're dealing with, but I think one of us here or several of us here could understand it well enough to explain it to other people, because it will explain a lot about our health, about our education, about everything we need to do, to really understand in a basic way. There is physics behind the rain dance that Native people do. I mean, there's all kinds of implications of this that we can apply our minds to things that have seemed very mysterious, and they can become a little bit more understandable. The great mystery of life in this universe will never even get, an iota of what we need to understand, but of cosmic consciousness. But we can take this on, we can understand it, and we can use it to the benefit of all humanity by becoming a member of your local station and saving Pacifica. That's it.
There you go. I want to say hi to Camilla Reese. Hi, Camilla. Thanks for coming with us. And I want to say, just maybe as a parting, one of Kurt Vonnegut's many great movies, I think it was built books, I think it was Sirens of Titan. He said basically, they was talking about people from outer space, and he said the Great Wall of China had actually been built to send a message to somebody else. It was like a code, the Great Wall of China. I always love that. Anyway, you guys, this has been wonderful. We will not meet next week. We still have 40 people with us, for God's sake. We will meet in 2 weeks.